So let me explain to you what was the eligibility earlier to be a voter for Jammu and Kashmir. What is the eligibility now? Who is also now eligible to vote in J&K? Let's begin. Now remember earlier, and I mean this is primarily before 2019, you had to be a permanent resident. So there was a permanent resident certificate that was given that was allowed to then vote. Now, any Indian citizen living, working in Jammu and Kashmir is eligible to vote. So what is applicable to all of us across India is applicable to J&K also now. What does it mean with regard to before and after? State subjects were also eligible. It's similar to the PRC, which means during the Maharaja times, there was a certain set names that were made of these are the permanent residents, and their generations continued to be. So anyone, even after 47, before, after, if they tried to enter, have been living there for decades in Jammu and Kashmir, have absolutely no stake in the government, even if they have been a part of the society. So there has to be, whether you are a non-local, now you can apply. What does that mean? Anyone living or working, staying ordinarily, according to the Jammu and Kashmir Election Commission, you can be an employee, a student, a business person. You are permitted just like any other Indian. Now here's where it gets very important with regard to society as well. Valmiki Dalits in 1957 were brought from Punjab to Jammu and Kashmir. Since then, there have only been Safai Karmcharis. They were a part of society, never a part of the government. They were never allowed to vote for J&K government assembly elections. Now they can. Even the West Pakistan refugees have been living since 1947 in Jammu and Kashmir, had no voting right. Including Gorkhas and also other marginalized groups are now eligible to vote as part of the government, that they can now even contest a vote. Now, importantly, let's go across to armed forces personnel. Armed forces personnel deployed in peace stations can now also vote. Peace station, according to the Jammu and Kashmir CEO, meant, for example, Jammu region, where there is not active patrolling or defending the nation or borders. There, the peace station armed forces personnel are eligible. You don't have to be now a domicile holder. You don't need to have a domicile certificate. So remember, this is nothing new or extraordinary that has been done to J&K. All of these are applicable to all the citizens across India, and therefore that is now applicable to J&K as well. Specifically, it was a part of abrogation of Article 370. Let me go across to my colleague Sunil Ji Bhatt to help us understand even more. Sunil, so there are definitely people who are appreciating it, specifically if they have been from the marginalized groups and have been discriminated since the 1950s at least. Politics has grown over it. So why is Mehbooba Mufti and Omar Abdullah alleging that this is unfair, this is discriminatory against J&K, and what is the ground sentiment both in Jammu and Kashmir? Take us through, Sunil.
Well, Pooja, as you said, a massive political controversy has erupted here in Jammu and Kashmir over the new, electoral rules in the Union Territory of J&K. As we know that now, any citizen of the nation who is staying in Jammu and Kashmir is eligible to vote. He or she can enlist himself as a voter here, and it's a normal procedure. This procedure is applicable in other states also. Suppose somebody from Jammu and Kashmir goes to Noida for work purpose, and he starts working there. He gets a job there. He gets registered as a voter there. Similarly, if there is somebody from Noida or from any other part of the country, if he wants to come to Jammu and Kashmir for say study purpose, for pursuing education, or for he gets a government job, then he or she should also be allowed to vote. This is a normal procedure, and that is what has happened now, and that is going to happen here in Jammu and Kashmir. But we know that the Kashmir-centric parties like the National Conference and the PDP feel that their political ground, is at stake. They may lose their political ground here in Jammu and Kashmir because they have an apprehension that the people of other states who are living currently in Jammu and Kashmir may be more sympathetic towards the BJP rather than to the National Conference and PDP, because both these regional parties, they are regional parties. They don't have a pan-India appeal. So they have this apprehension. But Pooja, it's a normal procedure, and this, as I said, that it has happened. It happens in the rest of the country, so it is going to happen here in Jammu and Kashmir also.
Sunil Ji Bhatt telling us exactly from what's been happening in Jammu and Kashmir, but politically this has become a big controversy. Sunil, thank you for getting us all the updates. Keep tracking the latest.